I love sales. I think sales is the great equalizer in society. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your education is, what color your skin, how big, small you are, where you grew up. If you got that persistence and you got that hunger and you learn how to sell, you'll be successful. If you don't, as long as you don't give up, right?
So, welcome to Closers Club. Today's guest is a true industry powerhouse, David Stodolak, the CEO of Connection Holdings that features brands like Home Direct Marketing, Solar Direct Marketing, where he leads high performing teams and drives high quality lead generation for the home improvement and solar sectors. David is not just a call center leader, he's actually the host of the LFG show. Not sure if anyone's checked it out, but it's an amazing podcast where he dives into stories of industry leaders with expertise in call center development, AI, strategic partnerships. David has built and scaled businesses from the ground up. So David, thank you so much for joining the show today. Really excited to chat with you. I've been watching a lot of your podcasts over the past month, just in anticipation of this. Um, and so I'm just honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you, and
So,
thanks for the nice introduction. I appreciate that.
oh, you're welcome. Of course. So how are things? You're in Miami. What takes you to Miami today?
Oh, and I'm in New Jersey now.
Oh, New Jersey.
I was when we originally scheduled this. I was supposed to be back in my office there. It's actually in Aventura, which is 30 minutes north of Miami proper. But yeah, I had a lot of issues. I was supposed to be in Jersey yesterday, be back. I was supposed to be back, but a lot of flight issues, and I'm here today. But at least we're on. But Miami's been good. It's it's no place like home. I love Jersey. I feel more alive here. I feel like I walk faster when I'm in Jersey. People drive normal to me, and when I'm across the river, I'm in Hoboken right now, which is right across the river from New York City. In New York City, I go even faster there. I feel like I got to step it up a little bit. So it's good to be here. I had some good meetings this morning. Uh, Always get business done when I'm here. No matter where I'm at, I always find a way to get business done. So anyway, yeah, so far so good. But Miami's been a good move for us. My wife's got family there. It's a big paper call lead gen hub. We do business in Colombia as well. We have a couple businesses out there. My wife's from Colombia, so we're gonna be in Colombia next week. Actually, I go there like once every 4 to 6 weeks. So the proximity is pretty good too.
It's great. So I had a conversation with Mike Francic from he's the CEO of True
Yeah,
Alliant.
awesome
He's
guy.
always traveling too. Is traveling like the name of the game within the space?
Well, yeah, for me especially, I was listening to a book yesterday. It's on the billionaire. Let me see what it is. I had a long drive yesterday. So many flights. I had to go to Boston and drive 4 hours at 1 in the morning. So I finished an Audible book. Tell you the name of it.
That part of
It's
your
some.
University on Wheels?
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. Make your car a university on wheels. But the name of the book is How to Make a Few $1 billion, right? And it's about a gentleman who started a business in the late 70s, early 80s. Kind of like instead of lead brokering, he was brokering oil. He found an arbitrage situation where back then information was scarce. So those who had access to information could make markets. They could make middles, right? And he made a middle on oil. He would get oil cheaper in London and sell it to New York and vice versa. So he was able to generate billions of dollars in revenue during that period of time. And that money he generated helped them build other companies. And then he eventually created three publicly traded companies. All have done like, hundreds of billions of dollars. Great book. But anyway, what he says there is that when meeting, there's no substitute for meeting face to face with people. I'm a big believer in accelerating time frames, collapsing time frames, and really, when you meet someone face to face, it's so much better than over a Zoom, especially if it's a new account or someone that you're looking to scale. You kind of get in there, and they'll give you insight that they won't give you. Because when you're on a Zoom, it's like being at some of these shows. Everything's going so fast, right? You have 30 minutes, but when you're with them face to face, you might have an hour or two or three. You get that extra time with them, and that'll help you at the end of the day create more value, understand what their pain points are, ask more questions, enables you to listen more without feeling rushed, right? Kind of get that quality time with them. So yeah, travel has been huge for our business, and I don't really know when it's going to stop, honestly. I mean, I feel like it's always something new. Every time I think we're gonna calm down, something happens, But April in particular was a crazy travel month. There were three shows in Las Vegas. I forgot there was another show. I'm losing track. I'm going to Puerto Rico for a mastermind Friday. Then I'm going to Colombia from there. So May should slow down, but it seems like always something comes up, and I got to make myself somewhere. But it is. I think it's very, especially for our line of work, it is important to put in that face-to-face time.
Yeah, totally. I hear you. I mean, it always seems, what, it, even if you like you're not really getting moving faster, face to face, it always feels like you're getting more stuff done, right? Like, because you can jump on like 15 different Zoom calls and talk to the same people in a shorter amount of time. But like when you're just in the office, working with someone, talking with them, connecting, it always feels better.
Yeah, and I feel you almost have an obligation to them. It's almost a you went on a real date, right? It's Zooms is almost like speed dating,
Yeah.
and you almost go through the motions, right? It's like the commitment level from 1 to 10 might be a 2 to 3, whereas when you're face to face, it's like an 8 or 9. You went out of your way to see them, and they know that, they acknowledge that, and you're gonna be at higher on their priority list, right? Than a Zoom. Anyone can take a Zoom, but when you actually, fly to another state, take time out of your life, take time away from your family, there's a commitment level to that. So I think that that's been instrumental in helping my businesses grow. And as I've been doing this a little bit longer, we're having better quality meetings. We're having better quality companies we're working with. Companies that are doing billions in revenue, or high nine figures. So when you get in those arenas, then you can add more value, and there's more revenue you can make, more you can advance your company. So that's why I say, when I say it might slow down, it seems like there's always, like, we might onboard a new client, that massive client, and when I go to their operation, I see how they're operating their call center. We get under the hood. It feels like there's always some business that gets made, or there's some acceleration in the current level of business we're doing. So that's why for me it's super important.
Yeah. Do you do all of your podcasts? Do you do those in person, or do you do
Yeah,
Zoom as
they're all
well?
in person. We don't do any. The only one. No, everything for LFG has been in person. We did Ring Bun Offer Vault are sponsors of the show, and we did something with Offer Vault last month. It's like What's Hot Fridays. We're supposed to do it the first Friday of each month. We did it in March. We were supposed to do it in April, but I had some conflict. I couldn't do it. We'll resume that in May. But that's the only one we did.
Yeah.
Like, as a live. I've done a couple lives, but aside from that, all the podcasts we've done have all been face to face, and I feel like it makes a big difference.
It does. It does. I mean, like it just feels like anyone can do this, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually, in my opinion, it's harder to have like a true conversation when you're over a Zoom like this, because you don't get the feel like the soft skills, right? Like you don't get those same types of, hey, is this like a hot button issue, or how do we dig deeper into this topic? Like, because it's a Zoom call, I can't really read the body language as much as you would if you're face to face.
Yeah, I think there's also a fear. People are like, "Oh, is there someone we could, like, Zoom's listening to this?
Recording
This
it.
is stored somewhere, right? So I'm not going to say this." Whereas if you're face to face with them, they'll tell you some stuff they wouldn't normally say, whether it's politically correct or not, right? So those are the little things that make the big difference
Yeah.
between a success or failure, or getting that higher level commitment out of them.
Totally. Couldn't agree with you more. So let's I want to dig deep into the pod. I think you're doing a lot of great stuff, but before we get into that, and I'm actually listening to the one that you did just the other day. I forget the gentleman's name.
Manny
Yeah,
Zuccarelli.
Manny.
That one,
Listen,
yeah, I think that was one of the top three we did. He went really deep. He was very vulnerable. He talked about stuff that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, won't talk about, and I really appreciate that he did that.
that's great. That's cool. So yeah, I want to talk more about that. But before we get into it, because I also want to know like why you even decided to do a pod, like everyone's doing a pod. So I want to ask about that. But before we do that, like, let's talk about your early career. Like, how did you get started? You went to business school in New York. You got into equity trading. How did you get into call center? Like, what was the story there? What was the motivation and the drive?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I graduated college right across the river, New York University, Stern School of Business. Graduated 2001, and that was a very unique time in the American economy. I think we're going some similar stuff now. But that was
The housing
the
bubble.
yeah, the dot-com
No,
inflation of the bubble, and then the bursting of the bubble, right? So I couldn't wait to graduate college, because my roommate was a year older than me. He got like a $30,000 signing bonus. And this is, keep in mind, this is 2000. $30,000 sign-on bonus for some publicly traded tech company in San Francisco. They flew him out to San Francisco for a whole month. I think they gave him $130,000 salary. So, that's like 160 right there. Now I think adjusted for inflation, that's probably over $250,000, right? So I was seeing all that. I'm seeing people drop out of college, do startups. They could be BS.com and they're worth millions of dollars, right? It was a crazy time to be alive. I couldn't wait to graduate. Unfortunately, when I graduated, everything hit the fan. 9/11 happened a couple months after that. It was not a good time to graduate college, right? So, with that being
Were
said,
you living in New York for
I,
9/11?
well, no, I was living in New Jersey. I graduated college May 2001. 9/11 happened September 2001. But I worked in Manhattan. I was trading stocks. I was a proprietary equities trader, and it sounds more glorified than it was. They give you $100,000 and you have to, like, it's like no commission only. You eat what you kill, right? The crazy thing is September 10th, 2001. I had my best day. It wasn't even like a big day. I think I did like 800 something dollars, but I was pumped. And then the head trader, who's making millions a year, was like, David, you got what it takes to be a successful trader. He gave me like a pep talk before I left. I remember I left home. I left the office like 7 at night. I got home. The crazy thing is I had an interview that same at September 11th on the 84th floor of the tower, the first tower that got hit, with a company called Navalus Security. I was someone that values time. I woke up late somehow that day. Crazy chain of events. I missed my train to New York City. I was gonna drive in, and then as I was driving, I don't know what was going. These Jersey drivers are nuts. They're road rage. They're flipping me off. I said, you know what, man, I'm not gonna go in the office. But my interview was later on though. My interview was like after the market closed. Like it was that guy that no, actually, sorry, it was before. It was at 8:30 is what happened. So anyway, long story short, I told the guy, can we reschedule the interview? Right before all this went down, like 8 o'clock, I sent an email. Let's reschedule it and so forth. I told my work that I was going to be there late, da 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 da. And then I went back home. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to call out. Actually, I told him I'm going to be out. I was a call out. I'll come back later to the city. And I came back, and all that stuff went down. So I missed the whole thing, thankfully. And I know buddies that were working at Merrill Lynch right on the river. Man, they saw stupid stuff. They saw people jumping out the building.
Yeah,
They
dude.
were they were traumatized. I remember I had a drink with one of them that night. So I'm grateful I wasn't there because I don't know. I mean, you got to imagine there's got to be some PTSD with that stuff. But yeah, I was. That was a crazy time, man. And they opened the city back up September 17th. I went back in there, man. It was just the stench was bad for months. You could still see I get chills talking about that, man. That was
Oh,
such a
dude, it's like I don't.
horrible
I'm getting
time.
chills. I'm getting chills. You telling the story,
Yeah,
right?
man. It was
There's definitely like purpose of why why your train, why you woke up late, why the traffic, why all the different issues you ran into, and it's just like that's not a coincidence.
yeah, man. I'm getting emotional thinking about one of my best friend's mother died like a month before that. I always think maybe she was watching out for me because I remember I got her like a little rock from Hallmark or something that said "Get well soon," and I remember I gave it to. It may have been like 2 weeks before that happened, and I gave her that rock, and I said, I don't know, I said some nice things to her, and this was the last time I saw her, and she said, David, take care of my son, watch over him, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. It was a crazy chain of events. I had a weird alarm clock that you pulled out the button. Yeah, it was like an old school. This is 2000, right? So it's one of these old school alarm clocks. Like you pull out the button. So I don't know. Maybe I pulled it out halfway. I don't know what happened. I don't know. It was
Jeez.
divine intervention, but I didn't wake up on time. I was supposed to wake up at 6:30. I had everything ready to go. Clothes packed, change of clothes. Woke up late. I missed my train, and I remember waking up it was like 7:05. I'm like, what is going on? I ran out the house. Um, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to freaking drive. And I didn't like driving in because it was a whole pain. You have to park your car in Newark, New Jersey, pay a lot of money to park, take the train. But the train would have arrived to World Trade Center around 8:44, the PATH train, and the first plane struck around 8:46. So I definitely would have. Listen, I'm not saying I would have been in the building, but there would have been some, something going on here or there. So at the end of the day, yeah, everything happens for a reason, and I'm glad I missed that. But I did have some sort of no, we're supposed to talk about Legion, but I had some weird thing like survivor's guilt for like a few months. I remember feeling guilty that I wasn't there. I'm like, I was supposed to be like, it was a weird thing. And I was 20
Yeah.
years old at the time, 21. And it did mess me up for a few months. And even just I haven't talked about this a long time. Talking about it again makes me, it's bringing back some memories. But yeah, it was just a crazy time to be alive. And then the stock market was already taking a hit from the dot-com bubble. That happened. It was like a 1-2 punch, right? So to go back to the question, I needed to make money, man. There was really no one hiring, and I like trading stocks. There was I was actually working for this company as a prop trader, but it was commission only. I wound up getting a job where they paid me a small base. They interviewed like 200 people, only hired four. I was one of the four people they hired, and I worked there for a year and a half. But the issue is that my income was so up and down. So I answered an ad as a bond broker in New Jersey. They'd say you make 300 phone calls a day. You're going to talk to 50 to 60 people. You get 3 to 5 leads. 90% of the leads are going to be BS. And then you pitch them. You pitch 10. One's going to turn into a sale. And I learned how to sell there, and that's where things change, and that's where I made my first sale. Like my second pitch turned into a sale. Guy sends me $10,000. I was amazed because I grew up with no money. At one point, my mom, she came from Venezuela, worked hard, but lost her job. We're on food stamps for a period of time. So I had this inferiority complex. I always felt like, I was inferior or whatever. So I'm like, who am I, this young punk, to be asking these people for money? But, I learned how to sell. They send me money, 10 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. And then I went on to become an institutional bond broker, and now I'm asking for millions of dollars over the phone. I'm asking these banks for 500,000, 2 million, right? And I learned there in life, you get what you ask for. And I became a really good salesperson, and that helped me build call centers. I worked in student loan consolidation, built some call centers for other people. Then I started my company, Solar Direct Marketing, as a side hustle in 2016 because I learned through those call centers that leads and call centers are married. You need to have good leads for the call centers and good call centers to work the leads, right? And then started as a side hustle from all the, connecting to all the people I knew from solar that worked with me in call centers that got into solar. And then the rest was history. I started to make so much money doing that, like on a part-time basis, that I did some math. I realized, man, if I really do this full time, this thing's going to work. And that's what happened. There's a lot of ups and downs the first 3 years, but in 2019, we started to catch momentum. Solar got really hot. I rode that wave, and that I didn't have to. I went off completely on my own. I didn't have to consult for anyone anymore. Didn't have to work for anyone. I've been pretty much on my own since 2019,
That's great.
and I'm forever grateful for that. But that all that history in New York, NYU during 2000, that kind of paved the foundation for all of that.
Totally. So you learned to sell, like how did you learn to sell?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am very I know we talked about LFG. I want to get more what we're talking about here. I want to do more of this kind of content on LFG because I love sales. I think sales is the great equalizer in society. It doesn't matter where you come from, what your education is, what color your skin, how big, small you are, where you grew up. If you got that persistence, and you got that hunger, and you learn how to sell, you'll be successful if you don't, as long as you don't give up, right? So
Yeah.
essentially I needed to make some money. The stock trading was too up and down, and honestly, I'm not someone to be in front of my computer all day watching stocks. I trade to this day. I swing trade. That fits my personality, but I need to be out there hustling and shaking, moving and talking, right? So anyway, with that being said, I saw an ad as a bond broker, and I knew you could make a lot of money doing that. The guy I interviewed, who interviewed me, was 29. I was 22. He told me he was making 300,000 a year. He was 29. This is back in 2003. Nowadays, that's probably like 600 grand. I don't know, but he wasn't even saying that to brag. So listen, I make 300 grand a year. The guy next to me makes 600,000. This guy makes 1 million. I suck. That's what he was saying, right? So he said, listen, I'm going to teach you, right? You follow my lead, you follow the script, you come in on time, you make 300 dials, you're guaranteed to make 100 grand within 6 months. So that's all I needed to hear. So they gave us scripts. They gave us very good training, a lot of role playing, stuck to the script. And I remember the script seemed kind of corny to me at first. One of the lines in the script, and keep in mind, I was selling bonds, and this was not no boiler room stuff where we're selling a fake product. This was Series 7 license. This company had been around for decades. It's still around to this day, and we're pitching bonds, fixed income, which to me, I appealed to me because I just saw the stock market collapse, right? And I didn't want to pitch stocks because I felt like you're going to lose people's life savings. I saw my mom, who busted her ass. She had jobs when she was young, when first coming to the country, making $6, $7 an hour. And she lost a lot of money when I was in college in the stock market. So I didn't want anyone to lose money on my dime, right? And I felt like bonds were safer. This was pretty much guaranteed. The government was guaranteeing the bonds. There was municipal bonds. I liked the product. It resonated with me. So with that being said, I remember one of the lines was, let's say I called you, Paul, right? I will call you, and I would qualify you. We'll make 300 calls a day, talk to 50 or 60 people. We know all 50 to 60 people we talk to weren't going to be qualified bond buyers. We had to vet you out. honestly, out of the 50, 60 people, half would hang up the phone on us or tell us to screw off, right? So anyway, so out of 25 people that were willing to talk to us, probably 20 to 30% were legit bond buyers. We want to talk to people that were already buying bonds. We call them KBBs, known bond buyers. Because if someone was buying stocks or they're buying CDs, we're not going to try to convince them to buy bonds. We don't want to work with you. There's
Yeah, it's
enough
a hard
people.
sell.
Yeah, especially
Hard
here
sell.
in New
Like,
Jersey. Yes, here in
well,
New Jersey, there's so many snowbirds, right? They live in New Jersey, or New York, and they live here during the summer months when the weather's nice, and they go to Florida and they get the tax exemption there. So, what they do is they make their money work for them. So they might have $5, $10 million saved, and instead of having a couple million in the bank earning whatever. At that point, it was 1%. Buy a tax-free bond at 4%, it's equivalent to 7%, right? So the bottom line was that we want to talk to those people. There's a lot of those people out there. So the idea was like, I'd call you Paul, I'd qualify Paul. I work with this company, blah, blah, blah. I would sell you on, that we were real, credibility, trustworthiness, da, 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 da. Have you heard of us? Da, 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 da. Half the time they heard of who we were. They would say things like, I already have a broker and I appreciate that, da, da, da. We'll talk about that and try to get them off. Just hear me out. If I find a bond, listen, everyone wanted a 5% bond at the time. There were no 5%. It was like a unicorn. If I found you a 5% bond, I'm sure you would listen to that, right? We will use these things called tie downs, tie them down, right? Does that sound fair? All that stuff. So I I just I just ate it all up. So I realized that it was a numbers game. So I would qualify you, and then if you were a bond buyer and you agreed for me to call you back when I had a bond that fit your criteria, I will put you write your information down, put you in a bucket. I'll pitch you like the next week. I'd call you up with everyone else. Like, hey Paul, we talked last week. Do me a
yeah.
favor, grab a pen and paper. I got that bond for you. And I would tell people to grab a pen and paper. And I'm like, I'm talking to these millionaires that have had successful businesses. I haven't done crap in my life. What have I done? Except I'm broke at this time. And I was living with my aunt. I had to move in with my aunt. I had no money, so I'm like, why the hell are they going to listen to me? I'm telling them grab a pen and paper. But it was funny. If I told 10 people to grab a pen and paper, 20 or 30% of the time they grabbed the pen and paper. And when they did, half the time they would close. Because when they grabbed the pen and paper, that means they were interested in what I had
Yeah,
to
they're
say. They
interested to
would
write it
I
down.
would hear them write the damn thing down, and I would wait sometimes 5 minutes. And then it was always be closing. I would go into the pitch. They'd say I have an objection or whatever, or buying signal. Always close, always be closing. And man, when I did that, they closed half the time. And I was like, man, this thing works. This is not rocket science. I was rookie of the month, I think my second month there. And I became addicted to sales when I made my first $100,000 sale at 23 years old. This guy bought $100,000 worth of bonds, made like 2,500 commission on that. I forgot how much the firm got, but when I got that sale, I'm like, man, I spent 20 or 30 minutes on that pitch, and I started doing the math. If I do that multiple times a day, this is how much I'm going to make. I'm like, you know what? I'm never going to do anything else but sales for the rest of my life. And 20 years later, uh, that's what I'm doing. I might be the CEO of Connection Holdings, but at the end of the day, I'm selling my team on pushing product, right? We're on here. I'm selling myself to your audience. Like we're always selling, right? So to me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because prior to that, I was looking to be like, I don't know, I was going to have a regular job, work a 9 to 5. So it kind of all these things going on in the economy got me into this line of work, which really I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for that, with the set of
I know
circumstances.
it sounds exciting, man. Like,
Yeah.
I love the
I
passion. I
get pumped
love.
up talking about this, man. I
I
want to
know
say
it, dude. Like, when I was watching the pod that you were doing with Manny, I was like, how am I going to mirror his energy? Like, he is so like passionate about sales, and that's like definitely the level that we want on this pod. And it shows. Like, I love it. So, uh, you're the CEO of Connections Holding now. What was the initial vision of Connection Holding when you started, right? Versus like what it's turned into now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. So I'll tell you. So Connection Holdings was not even a thought of mine. When I started my business, I started solo direct marketing as a side hustle
Yeah.
to make extra money, right? Because I was getting paid well as a consultant, but it was I had gone through a separation at the time with my first wife. I had a 3-year-old daughter, and she was in New Jersey, and I was building a call center in South Carolina. So my expenses, I had to pay uh child support. I was flying to New Jersey, so my expenses went through the roof, and I'm like, I have to make more money. And with that being said, it started off really out of survival to make more money. And before you know it, like I kept grinding, and I think also I got lucky in the sense that I chose to sell solar leads at a time that solar was just growing like crazy. There
Yeah.
were government incentives and all that stuff. So I happened to pick a vertical that was growing tremendously, right? So what happened was I met a gentleman named Ed Payne, who's my current business partner in Connection Holdings. He's my 50-50 partner. And I met him at Affiliate Summit East in August 2017, my first affiliate summit ever. It's about a year before we started doing business. We kept in touch. He was a good guy. I can tell he was trustworthy. We started doing a lot of business together, starting to hang out a lot more. That we decided to merge our companies sometime in 2021. We officially merged in January 2022, and that's how Connection Holdings was born. Because he had a company called Connecting the Dots, which still exists. That was an age data company, and what happened was I was his number one or number top two um, data buyer. I had so many solar clients I needed data, so I would go to him. He was my main supplier of the data. And then it turned into other verticals as well. So we decided I have the real time leads. You have the age data. Let's merge our companies. And from that, we started the call center. We got into other verticals. So initially, we figured there was more strength in numbers. He had my team maybe had 6 or 7 people. I think he had about the same 7 or 8. We merged and it gave me a lot more resources. I had a lot more help. We were able to grow and man, we just grew tremendously. 2022 was a big, crazy year for us. I mean, we grew so much that we had all these companies trying to buy us out. We actually signed up with a company, a private equity company, to buy us out. We were 3 months into the process, and it fell through because solar went the other way. They dropped their valuation 40%. We decided not to sell. But I would have never thought I'd have a company that people are willing to buy out. Again, it started as a side hustle,
Yeah.
and then I would never have thought like 6 years later that people would all be offering us 8 figures to buy our company, right? And that was like a
David.
self-limiting belief, and I'm glad I went through that process. Even though it didn't happen, I learned a lot about that process. I feel like that's going to happen again at some point, and it's just amazing. I think you just put your head down, you do what you're supposed to do, and try to create value. You do the right thing by your clients, by your employees, by your contractors, your vendors, everything like that. The business will take you somewhere that you never thought was possible, right? So yeah, and trust me, we had a 2023 things went the other way, and we now finally we're rebounding. It took a little while to rebound, right? But it's been a great journey. Even the down period, I think, helped me accelerate my strength as a business leader. It helped me be more aware of things, which we can talk about later. And I feel like, man, 2025 has started off strong. We're doing a lot of big things in home improvement right now and other verticals. So all these things that happen, man, I'm grateful for because I feel like we're the iteration of our company now is the best we've been. I think we're lean, we're mean, and we have a great team right now. Like this is a team I can go to the Super Bowl with.
That's great. That's awesome. So can we dig into some of the details on that? So, along this journey of almost to an acquisition or a buyout, there's different milestones that you were hitting, right? Are you able to kind of provide detail of what those key milestones are, like in your book, in your vision? And what were the challenges you faced, right? Like, so scaling from an example of milestone, scaling from 0 to 1 million, 1 million to 10 million, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, et cetera, et cetera. What are those key milestones that you were looking at? And if you can provide some examples of here were the challenges that we faced when we were an early company, this is how we got over that, and this is what we learned from it. And that helped us get to our next milestone.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I'm going to be speaking at I don't even know the name of the call center conference on Saturday. I call it Puerto Rico Con because it's in Puerto Rico. So anyway, I'm going to be speaking there, and this is one of the
Don't
things I'm
don't
going to.
call it what is that comedian Kill Tony?
No,
Tony Hedgecliffe, he called it a floating pile of trash.
oh yeah, no, yeah, we would do. Listen,
Just
yeah,
don't
I'm
do
not.
that.
I'm very politically correct. I got Hispanic blood, man. I listen. Oh,
Yeah,
much
yeah,
love to
don't
Puerto
call it
Rico.
that. You're
Shout
gonna
out
get
to Puerto
canceled.
Rico. Shout
Yeah.
out to Bad Bunny. Anyway, with anyway, yeah, no, I'm going to talk about this. One of my topics going to be about leveraging your connections, right? And this is part of it. And I'm going to talk about where we were and because of what we saw, what happened in 2023. Listen, I thought we were invisible. We were nothing but a rocket ship, really, from 2018 on. Every year we kept growing and growing and growing. To
What
me, that was
what
awesome.
happened in 2023?
20 what happened? What really it happened. Solar started going the other way late 2022.
Okay.
What happened was, and if you can see in the stock charts, if you look at all these publicly traded solar companies, the ones that are still in business, by the way, you'll see at the end of 2022, the stocks, I mean, they peaked and then boom, they were down like 80, 90%, some 100%, they got wiped out. So much of our fortune, of our revenue and profitability was tied around solar. We had a call center doing solar transfers. We're a top two in terms of solar transfers, in terms of numbers. We're doing daily, monthly, yearly.
Well, what
We're doing
happened in the market that drove that
Oh, okay.
drop?
So
Yeah.
the interest rates expose everybody, right? So
Okay.
solar is there's a lot of moving parts with solar. It's not that simple. People would see a 30,000, 40, $50,000 system like, oh, I want to start a solar company. But there's so many moving parts. You need permitting, there's roofs, there's like 12 different things in the way, right? And the net margins are not that high. These companies are netting 7 to 10% at the end of the day. And it's a very capital intensive business. So r- there's two things that happen. Interest rates went up dramatically, right? When I got into solar, rates were very super low. They were super low for 7 years, from 2016 to 2022. So
Yeah, they're
people would
near zero.
people don't really only like 5 to 10% of people actually bought their solar systems. It makes more economical sense to buy your solar system, pay the 30, 40 grand, get your 30% tax credit, right? But most people don't want to come out of pocket, or they don't have the wherewithal to do that. So they'll finance the system or lease the system, right? So when you do that, there's obviously an interest rate involved. So there were rates as low as 0.99%, 1.99, 2.99%. So that was the norm. So when rates went up, the financing of the system went to 6.99 to 10%. So now it did not make economical sense for people to go solar, right? So
Yeah,
people weren't
it's
signing up for it, and they didn't want to, they were gun shy. Like, why am I going to attach something else to my credit report, or another expense? Right now, solar is no longer savings, it's an expense. So economically, it didn't make sense. And second of all, the real big thing that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin was that these solar companies relied a lot on working capital. They would get the banks, financial institutions to throw money, private equity throw money at them, and the cost of the capital became way too high. And then they got nervous, they got skittish. They were like, we're not going to keep throwing money at this anymore, and they stopped doing that. And a couple other things, a couple big buyers went out of business. One of our big buyers, or there was a company spending 4 or 5 million a month on solar leads. They got acquired by ADT Home Security. Name of the company was SunPro. They were spending 500, 600,000. One month they did 800,000. Was when they got bought out, they weren't spending that much anymore. So there was acquisitions, there were people going out of business. It's just we went from having like 80 to 100 solar clients at a time to having like 8 or 10, and several that went out of business that stiffed us with the bill, right? So Wall Street and the money markets, they know, they sense where the money is going. So solar was not hot anymore. So that killed our valuation, and we had a lot of eggs in that basket, right? So what I realized, and while that was going on, though, we had other verticals. We had some stuff in insurance, debt, all that kind of stuff. But truthfully, nothing was better than solar was. We built our, we had we're top five definitely in the country in terms of solar legion, maybe top three. So we had a real big name. We had our stake in the ground there. So that's good when things are good. When things go bad, you're affected by it. So we had to lay people off. We did pivot into home improvement, thankfully, and I'm loving home improvement right now. I think home improvement has a lot more legs to it. It's like old money versus new money. But the bottom line is that that's what happened. Solar got hit with a 1-2 punch, and I think solar is going to have some problems for the next few years, honestly.
yeah. When through this conversation, it sounds like you've been really great at like picking a vertical like at the opportune time, right? Like the bond market, like when the market went down, you were selling bonds, right? Solar market, all the way through solar, you were selling, essentially involved in like solar lead gen and call center around that. What are you focused on home improvement now? Is that what you're thinking is the hot next market?
Yeah, well, it's been pretty hot, and I was talking to someone. I was at SolarCon last week, and SolarCon's more of a solar show, but there are some home improvement companies there, and there are a bunch of roofers there and people we do business with. And I wonder if that's a bubble too. Everything is from being in the market as long as I've been. There's always bubbles that get formed, right? So for now, I think there's some time left where this is going to continue to be hot, but it's going to be a matter of time before it's not as hot. But the one thing I like about home improvement is that it's people's biggest investment, right? We People spend so much money on their homes, and it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when you're gonna have to replace your roof, you're gonna have to replace your water heater, you're gonna have to replace your windows, you're gonna have ants, pests. You might want home warranty, homeowner insurances. There's so much that gets spent, and this stat varies. I read somewhere that the average Americans or the average homeowner spends 350, 400,000 on their home and home expenses before they're gone, right? So the bottom line is that that's a high ticket right there. So I feel like we are. If it was a baseball game, there's 9 innings. Maybe we're in the fifth or sixth inning. There's still a few innings left. But even when it kind of gets to its peak, there's always going to be. I don't think it's going to burst like solar burst. Solar just burst,
Yeah.
right? We're still doing solar, but we're off like 70% off our peak. But we still make money doing it. It's not like it was. I feel like home improvement won't burst as much because people are going to be living home, and they have to live somewhere, and there's always going to be some sort of expense. Maybe what will happen is they won't spend as much. Maybe instead of a bathroom remodel, they'll choose to hold off on it or do it themselves. So I feel like at some point that might happen. That's the big risk. But I'm always another reason why I travel so much is that I'm always on the lookout. What's the next thing, right? And we always have other like R&D. We always try other verticals out and try to make them work. And truthfully, they don't work most of the time, right? But when they do work, it's awesome. It's almost like a biotech or a pharmaceutical company. They spend billions of dollars on these drugs and they lose billions, but then when they hit, they make 50 billion, 100 billion, hundreds of billions of dollars. Look at Ozempic, right? Eli Lilly. So the bottom line is that it's the same kind of thought process. And I think that the reason I think that way is because I went to NYU during the dot-com bubble. There were survivors. 90% of companies went out of business, but the Amazon stuck around, Google stuck around. There's companies that were able to weather the storm. Amazon was just selling books. They pivoted, right? Now they sell everything under the sun. They bought Whole Foods out, right? Who would have thought? I would have never imagined back in 2000 Amazon would be selling organic food. They bowed Whole Foods. So the thing is that you got to be ahead of the trends. And I think going to NYU when I went there, seeing those trends, seeing those bubbles, trading the markets like I trade them, there's always something out there, right? But you need to have an anchor vertical, and I think home improvement will be our anchor vertical for a long time to come.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Home improvement makes sense. I mean, especially now when no one knows how to do anything. Like people don't know how to like build stuff anymore with their hands.
Yeah,
So it
and
really
I'll
makes
tell you
sense.
another thing too. So a lot of especially with the LOG show, I talked to a lot of media buyers, and a lot of people want to break into home improvement, but I feel there's almost a moat to it, like there is with Medicare, because home improvement to successfully buy media for that, it's white hat. There's no games. A lot of times with insurance, you can play games. People talk about subsidy angles. Even with solar, there is a lot of people saying free this, whatever, government this, and the big ads when I first got into were they throw pictures of a governor, and it doesn't matter what state you were in. You could be in Utah, you could be in Florida. Whoever was your congressperson, their pictures were on there saying with signing a bill. This governor signs this bill. It was misleading, but people would click on those ads and those work. So what I'm saying, that's more like gray, black hat kind of stuff, right? A lot of guys that are very successful at running those kind of angles, they'll go into home improvement and you can't run those angles. You're gonna get they're gonna shut you down for that. So because we had so much success with solar, that pivot is good for us because we have a lot of the same audiences, we got a lot of the same data, right? That we can retarget, and we know how to run clean. So I feel like we're going to be doing this for a long time to come, and it seems like every week we're onboarding a new big whale, right?
Yeah.
With 9-figure, 10-figure companies, and so long as we do the right thing, the same template we apply to solar, do the right thing by our client, figure things out, fix things when they go wrong. I don't see why we're not going to continue to grow with them. So I wish we cracked this vertical sooner. We really cracked it May of last year. And it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason, but I'm very excited about this vertical.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? If someone's able to afford putting solar panels on their house, it's very likely that they may want to do a kitchen or a bath renovation of some sort or
Correct.
an addition, anything like that.